infringing on the independence of the legislature?
Talking about legislative independence, you see, the doctrine of separation of power, to my mind, is actually not absolute. Now, what are the responsibilities or duties of the legislature? One, to represent the people. Two, to make law. Three, to exercise oversight function. And if you look at the Ninth Senate, when you talk of lawmaking, they were actually at their best. But when you talk of representation, of course you can have that for a taking. You look at the aspect of oversight function. I think that was the area that they failed Nigerians, because if they were living up to their responsibility, we would not have been messed up with.
But what would you think was responsible for that? Because many labeled that Ninth Assembly rubber stamp. But the fact that almost everything that the president brought before it was almost impossible. I think it was always towards the end where the president wanted extra monies for the palliative. I think he wanted some monies, and Nigerians were saying, "Don't! You're already living. Why would the Senate approve this sort of money?" But most of the times we saw that every bill that came before them from the president was approved, and that got them the label rubber stamp. Is that as a result of them looking at those bills and thinking, well, it is something that will benefit Nigerians and Nigeria, or perhaps this is coming from the president and we are from the same political party?
You see, when we talk of this issue of rubber stamping, the parliament is not a boxing ground. It's not a place where you will always say no, 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 no. For me, as a person, prior to this time, I was not a Tinubu fan. But as the days progresses, I'm beginning to buy into his Renew Hope mantra agenda. So if the Ninth Senate felt that all that the former president was bringing was for the interest and for the betterment of our country, Nigeria, maybe from their perspective, they may have looked at it in that way.
So now, Akpabio has emerged, and there was a regional play in all of this, wanting the South to produce the president of the Senate, and this will be for a second time, if I'm not mistaken. The role of regional politics in all of this, and how it influences politics in general, and the credibility of candidates. From your perspective, how would you rate Akpabio as regards to his credibility and qualification for the job? For many people, he failed as a senator, as a minister. For many people, even as a senator, there are people who still question his performance in the House. What did you do? What bills? For some people, you were not even vocal enough. We cannot see how many bills that you sponsored on the floor of the House, etc., etc. The one thing people point towards that gives people some sort of hope would be his time as governor of Akwa Ibom State. So when you put all of this together, how confident are you that we are going to see something interesting from the 10th Assembly, especially the red chambers?
Yeah, one thing you should know is that as long as we walk on this planet Earth, there are no angels. And as long as we also walk on this planet Earth, I also believe in giving people a second chance and another opportunity. You cannot, as it is today, you cannot isolate the issue of tribal politics. You cannot also wipe out the sentiment of religion completely from our polity, because we are an emerging nation. We are still growing. For Akpabio, I think he has another chance of proving his detractors wrong, that he is a good man, and I think that now that the ball is in his court, he just have no choice but to perform well, because the state at which we are in Nigeria now, if we don't get it right now, then it is all over. So whether the executive or the legislative arm of government, there is the call on all of them to live up to Nigerians' expectation. And I see Akpabio doing well in this 10th Senate.
All right, so we're looking at some of the bills he sponsored. I can find 2 of them here from 2017, and both of them are still awaiting committee report. This was from 2017.
Yeah.
One of them was Legal Practitioners Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill of 2017. Another one was the Federal Polytechnic Kwanee bill of 2017, and both the status here from 2017 at the time is awaiting committee report. Yeah. Whether or not anything is so his performance on the floor of the House, it's what many people look and begin to ask the questions that they ask. The party politics involved in this would also come into play.
Yeah.
What we are beginning to see, yes, you cannot have one. Your party alone cannot give you the votes required. You need opposition political parties. But then some people have also begun to look at the PDP and say, could this begin to signal the end of the PDP with regards to it being a formidable force for an opposition in the country? What happens to opposition politics with the kind of politics we are already seeing at play, right from the campaigns to the elections, and even now that governance is going on? Let's go for a commercial.
Boeing Luxury Estates Limited and the Boeing Group congratulate her group manager
Info PH. My guest, Leyii Kwanee, let me add, was also a governorship candidate of the Zenith Labour Party in the just concluded election, and was hoping that he was going to run for, was going to be governor of Rivers State. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure that dream hasn't died.
It has not. It has not.
There's always another time. The president said it in his Democracy Day broadcast. You might not win today, but that's the beauty of democracy. Another time, you try. Let's get into it. Akpabio, now the president of the Red Chambers for the 10th Assembly, and it's bringing all sorts of reactions. We're going to go back into that conversation because we just while the commercial was on, we're discussing quite a lot, and some of the questions that I want to ask you, party politics involved, opposition politics, there's a lot of things that will come into play here, especially when we see the kind of politics that have been coming. It seems as though the president is trying to get everybody on the same team, because we're at the moment not hearing too many dissenting voices. Everybody seems to be happy with how everything is going and who is emerging and all of that. Although the run for who becomes Senate president seemed to have been one that many felt, oh, well, the North should not even have been involved. Akpabio should have gone unopposed. It should be for the South. And all of those conversations. But here we are. The fact that he was anointed by the president, in quotes, is also now a question. Because people would say, does he have the courage to stand up to the president if a time comes where certain demands or certain things are not going as they ought to for the interest of the masses? That is a concern for many people. Do you see Akpabio as in the business of lawmaking, which you've been in?
Yeah.
How do one handle such situations? Because they will come.
Akpabio is just the first among all equals, and the question I may also want to ask you was there a contest, or was it just only Akpabio? If you look at the election that took place at the Red Chamber, you can see what Akpabio scored, you can see what Yari called, you can see that there was an opportunity for the people to even say no to what Mr. President may have said. So going forward, what I expect is that the National Assembly or the Senate, so speaking, should be able to rise up to the responsibility of the aspect of their oversight function. Because if the institution is strengthened in this direction and the ministers are put on check, the head of agencies and parastatals are put on check, I think better days will be here for us, because Akpabio is not just going to be the only person, though he's going to preside, but there are other persons that are there in the National Assembly. Don't think a time
will come where they would want to remove him? Because if we're going to look at the Akpabio as governor of Akwa Ibom State, was a very stubborn person. Yeah. And when he has said it, I'm going to bring uncommon change to the assembly, which was his mantra at the time he was in Akwa Ibom, uncommon change. They call him the governor of uncommon change. Yeah. You don't think that we might get to a point where there might be voices that would want for him to be removed or impeached because of perhaps some of the strong stance that he might take if we get the version of the Akwa Ibom State Akpabio, which many are hoping?
What strong strand are we?
But we never could tell. We saw what happened with the Electoral Act, for instance, in the past administration. Yeah. And we saw how that played out, how the back and forth, and a lot that happened in the House. I mean, we know that there were lots of interest with regards to certain clauses in that act. So something of that kind of a nature. We cannot tell. Yeah. Of course, only time will tell when as governance continues to unfold. But when you look at how things are in the 10th Assembly, you think we might have like something we had with the Saraki era. Do you think we might have any of those?
You see, the beauty about the 10th National Assembly is that it is not populated purely by the APC.
They still have majority.
Yeah, they still have majority, but there are instances that they may need to tell.
And the PDP is divided. So there's also another. That's also another thing to look at. The PDP, whether we like it or not, say it or not, the PDP is divided. Clearly,
that's true.
It's divided, and we haven't heard too much from the national leadership of the PDP with regards to what's happened in the House. We know that the former Rivers State governor has been very involved, meetings upon meetings
with the G5 and all the rest.
And he has said it openly with other former governors that he thinks Akpabio is the best person, at least to pacify. Some people think it's to pacify the South for the Muslim ticket that the APC presented. Do you think that also played a role?
You know, politics is first and foremost about the personal interest, self-preservation, and all of that. There must have been a lot of calculation that may have been put in place in order to bring up the person of Akpabio. So
you don't think the Muslim ticket specified the Christians in the country could have played a role, or pacify the South? You don't think that played any role?
Of course, to a greater extent. Of course, Christians, like, I look at some of the congratulatory messages that has been coming when Akpabio came. Christians across the length and breadth of this country, they've been congratulating Akpabio. So, you know, the Shetima arrangement was a child of necessity that they have to put together at that time in order to ensure victory for the APC then. But going further, of course, an arrangement needs to be put in place in order to appease to the Christian community of our country. So they were all part of it. But first and foremost, whoever you see pushing what, you cannot also isolate his personal interest.
What happens to opposition politics? Now that we are seeing parties, politicians all crisscrossing interests of pushing the interest of the people or my interest. Well, the mantra we're hearing is for the people of the Niger Delta, for the people of the South. That's now the new slogan. Even if some people don't believe that it's entirely because of that, but that's what we're hearing is what is in front. And we're beginning to see, for instance, in the past election, we saw how opposition political parties across different lines voted for the candidates of different political parties. What happens to opposition politics? Especially the PDP seemed to be one that should be a strong opposition. Right now in the House, I was asking someone, who did the PDP have any candidate that perhaps from the South that he would have looked at and said, let's contest this to have our own party bring up someone from the minority to become, which had been a problem in the past in the House, because everybody thinks majority should have the Speaker of the House. It cannot be the minority. It's not possible. Yeah. That also brings party politics. So now, how does this play in this administration? Are we going to see a solid opposition? Because it doesn't look as though that is what it's going to be at the moment. If we are to have checks and balances,
you should not also lose sight of the fact that more than 80%, especially in the Green Chamber, of those that are returning or that were elected, they are newcomers, and our politics is still emerging, is still growing. You can also not rule out the issue of bread and butter in all of this, and you know, most of these lawmakers, they are not there because they have the calling, let me use that word, but they are there as a source of employment, which is very sad. But I'm just hoping and believing that we grow from this phase to a day when we will have a stronger parliament, that the people will be able to stand up for themselves.
Let's take some messages and a few calls. Kingsley Ebenezer on Facebook says, judging from track record of Akpabio and Yari, Akpabio is the most qualified for the job. Having served as Senate Minority Leader, I think he has more legislative political experience than Yari. Let's be hopeful while activities of the 10th Senate unfolds. Frankest says, it is going to be corruption to the highest order. Remember his time in the NDDC as Minister of the Ministry of Niger Delta up till when that administration wound up. Did you hear anything about the forensic audit that was carried out? Did you hear anything come out of it? Abe Akuro Perry says, congratulations to him anyways. He didn't merit it, but just that the Muslim ticket wanting to pacify Christians decided to do this. So we're saying so the other people were also thinking in that line. Chile Edwin says, funny that Akpabio will mock the APC to the extent of branding Leyii Mohammed will be celebrating having emerged as the Senate president under the same party as wonders will never end. Well, we know some of the comments, and that's another thing with the comments politicians make. In the past, they make certain comments and say certain things that, well, and then eventually now when they switch, you're wondering, we never thought after all that you've said. Let's go to the phone lines. 0817-923-0003. 0817-923-0007. Some would say, which version of the Senate president would you want to see? The Akpabio as governor of Akwa Ibom State, or the Akpabio as minister, or you just want to see a new Senate president? Temple is in Rumomasi. How high are your expectations? Good morning.
Good morning, my very distinguished Ifemi Andrew. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Very fine, thank you. Go on.
Please permit me to salute you again.
Good
morning, sir.
Good morning, Temple.
The very distinguished Ifemi Andrew. Indeed, of a truth, I would say, first of all, a very big congratulations to Godswill Akpabio. Indeed, he deserves it. But when you ask the question, I want to see the version of, Godswill Akpabio as a former then governor of Akwa Ibom State. Because in as much as there's not much he can do, as at then he was an executive, he has the power to execute projects, undertake a project, execute, and make sure that project, see the light of the day. But as an executive, one thing I expect from him, legislator, one thing I expect from him now is that synergy, and not synergy of compromisation, synergy of working with the executive in making sure that the interest of Nigeria is placed first, and anything at all that will not frustrate or suffocate us again, they shouldn't say yes to that. It's as simple as ABCD. Please, it's very much important. They should work in synergy in making sure that we, get out of that state of comatose we find ourselves. And most importantly, in terms of the economy, placing some kind of policies that it will not be healthy to us as a people. They should work towards that. And it shouldn't be anything goes this time around. They should change that narrative of being a rubber stamp, legislative or legislative members. It's a task ahead of them. That is my humble submission. That Akpabio as a governor is what Nigerians want to see. Thank you.
All right then, Temple, thank you very much. The Akpabio as a governor is what Nigerians want to see. Let's check out some of your messages on WhatsApp. The WhatsApp number is 0809-030-6416. So you can send in messages, ask questions, and contribute generally your opinion on the emergence of Akpabio as the Senate President for the 10th Assembly. The numbers to call are 0817-923-0007. 0817-923-0007. You can also call 0817-923-0003. 0817-923-0003. That's also a number you can call to be part of the conversation this morning. Ben also says, congratulations to Akpabio. Ma Abase Nelson Bishop said Akpabio is a product of transformation. Okay. Mr. Kwanee.
Yeah, Mr. Andrew.
As it looks at the moment, let's even look at the politics involved. Now that we have this sorted out, and it seems as though, everybody seems to be happy that Akpabio has emerged. If you were a lawmaker, what would you say should be the first steps or first duty this 10th Assembly should begin to look at?
Well, Andrew, thank you so much. I mentioned earlier that the three major assignments of a lawmaker: one, to represent his people, that can be taken for granted; two, to make law; and the idea of oversight function. I've taken time to look at the budget of the National Assembly, and have come to the realization that I'm not holding brief for them, but I feel that they are underfunded. If you look at the budget,
with Nigerians even clamoring for some of their expenses to be cut down.
Let me. I've been in the House before, and if you want to exercise your oversight function very well, you should not expect, if I am going to MPA from Port Harcourt, MPA should book my ticket. When you cascade down what comes into the National Assembly by way of funding, you realize that there is little or nothing left for the committees to carry out.
But in the first place, are these lawmakers really doing enough for their constituents? Because there are certain demands of a lawmaker that we don't see. How many of these lawmakers even visit the constituents? They don't. Some of them don't even have offices.
I don't just want to go into that.
No, so I'm like, generally,
let's look at this aspect of, because when we keep saying these people are rubber stamping, you understand. Now, I am looking at a situation where the committees are well funded, that they don't have any business to do with the various ministry to fund their activities, so that when they are up there for their oversight function, they can ask the right question.
All right.
A scenario played out recently. You recall when the heat was so much on the former aviation minister, and you had to start talking that, hey, the House member asked for 5%. You see that kind of that situation. So I am looking at a 10th assembly that is strengthened at the level of committee, so that they should be able to perform their oversight function excellently. And when that is done, I think the ministries and ministers, they will have no choice but to sit up.
All right, let's go to Donald in Alu. Hello, Donald. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you? Yes, you're welcome.
The talk, I think I'm just hearing about our brother Akpabio as the Senate President.
Yes.
And the people are talking of a forensic audit. The forensic audit, nobody should blame him, because he wanted to publish names of people. And he said they are the members of House of Senate and Rep. And they stopped him not to publish the names. So why people are blaming him? Are they not aware? Akpabio will perform as one of the best Senate presidents in this country, as far as I know. So they should give support to Akpabio to bring the past glory of the Senate and the whole upper house to upliftment of Nigerians, not only to themselves when they were there. So that is my view. Many people talk, they say Akpabio will not perform, Akpabio will do this. I always listen, but this is my first time of calling through. Any day I call, it's not going. Any day I call, it's not going.
Well, thank God,
I believe Akpabio will do well.
All right.
Just to give support to Akpabio so that we will achieve our aims and objectives.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Promise in Remo Dumaya. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, my beloved brother.
Yes, so morning to you. Promise.
The emergence of Akpabio, my brother, to me, is based on credibility. And the past governor of Rivers State supporting Akpabio's emergence, I think it is still based on credibility, not sentiment. Why am I saying this? There is this saying that goes like this: despise not the days of your little beginning. So Akpabio as a governor and Akpabio now a Senate president, there is no difference, my brother. Looking at his antecedents, when he was the governor of Akwa Ibom State, Akpabio turned Akwa Ibom to a paradise. And today, Akwa Ibom is no longer what it used to be. So despising not the days, because he refused to despise the days of his little beginning, he will not despise the days of his big emergence.
All right, promise. Thank you.
So I think it is based on credibility. Let's go
to Chima now. Chima from Rimokuta. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Andrew.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Andrew, I actually listened to your case. I think we must not forget that the trajectory on how politics runs and when it has to be Senatorial. Akpabio was the first person, if I tend to be corrected, who actually stepped down for the current president during the primary. We must not forget that. When you ask the question of are we going to see Akpabio as governor or as minister, look, Andrew, with everything that transfer, I think it was a conversation, and we are not going to see Akpabio as governor. We are going to see Akpabio as minister. You understand? Let's not forget. Your guest also said that most of them who are there, they go there because of employment. We must take that into cognizance. They go there. Even the past governor of Rivers State, the former minister of transportation, he said something. He said he joined politics because of lack of employment. So these guys, they are not there for the interest of the public. They are there for their personal interest. And that is what is going to play out. We must not forget. So that is how politics is playing in Nigeria. They will first of all put their interest before the interest of Nigeria as general. So that is why sometimes we see most of the issues that comes forward that concern the general public. They don't take it seriously. But the one that concerns them, you see them fighting over it, coming together to be able to get it. So let's not expect anything different because it's more or less conversation based on stepping through the primary.
All right, then. To Kelvin now in Igruta. Kelvin, good morning. Straight to the point, please.
Yeah, good morning. You're talking to Kelvin from Igruta.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you ask 2 questions. If we need the governor version of Akpabio or we need the minister version of Akpabio. For me, I think we need the both of them. Akpabio has always been for me, I think Akpabio is the best candidate for this job. Akpabio has always been an uncommon man, whichever office he finds himself. What happened then in NDC, for me, I think wasn't really his fault. Akpabio was there to change things, but the cabals that were there decided not to allow Akpabio to do his job. So you can't say that Akpabio didn't do well in NDDC. How many months did he spend in NDDC? NDDC, they shifted from where they were paying about over 300 million naira and shifted to their main office. So Akpabio has always been a man that any office he finds himself, he makes change. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Kelvin. Let's get to my guest. You heard the callers. In less than in a minute, what would you respond? What would you say as we prepare to journey into the tenure of the 10th Assembly?
Importantly, when we vote our representative, we should not leave them alone. There must always be a stakeholders engagement. We have to push them to a point where we make them to be accountable to us, whether they like it or not. Because if you leave them, we have voted them, is it not 4 years? After 4 years, they will come back again. Then we decide whether or not they will be re-elected or not. We must hold them to accountability, that they are there not for themselves, but that they are there for the common good of the people. And beyond all of that, sir, I think the interest of Nigeria matters so much. We have been so battered, we've been so bruised, that Nigerians are expecting so much from not just the 10th Senate, but from Mr. President himself.
Okay.
That's why I stated earlier that his renew hope mantra and the step that he has taken so far has endeared a few of us into what he is doing.
We'll have to wrap things
we
up there
cannot
because of the time. Thank you very much, Leyii Kwanee.
Yes.
Thank you for your time. Former Deputy Speaker at Rivers State House of Assembly and one-time candidate for governorship elections in Rivers State.
Thank you.
Visa Seminar.